Back in 2008, we saw the abolition of the blasphemy law in this country. A blasphemy law, by the way, that is only actually involving Christianity and no other religion. But for some reason, we seem to have a blasphemy law back in by the back door, partly due to threats from largely, let's face it, Islamists, violent Islamists, not Muslims, Islamists, people who follow a violent political ideology, who are basically forcing people who do not obey their religious doctrine basically into hiding, like the teacher at the Batley Grammar School who simply showed a cartoon to his pupils of the Prophet Muhammad and has been living in hiding, he and his family, ever since, some 4 or 5 years now, and other cases where we have seen people subject to violence. However, the latest case is not from a threat of violent mob. The threat is from the actual Crown Prosecution Service, who have basically brought back a blasphemy law by the back door by prosecuting a man for burning a copy of the Koran. Let's talk about this with Ben Jones. He's Director of Case Management at the Free Speech Union. Good afternoon to you, Ben. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Why on earth would somebody be prosecuted for doing something that's not against the law?
Well, it's important to stress it absolutely is not against the law, and yet this is the third attempted prosecution that I'm aware of this calendar year alone. And what's happened in this particular case is that the CPS has decided that Mr. Koskan, this individual who burnt a copy of the Quran outside the Turkish consulate,
Hamid Koskan, yeah.
That's correct, that this has caused harassment, alarm or distress against what they're calling the religious institution of Islam. Now, there is no religious institution of Islam in this country. There is certainly no criminal offence against causing harm, harassment, alarm, distress, any of these things. There is the Public Order Act, which deals with causing harassment, alarm or distress to individuals. But Islam is not an individual. It is a set of ideas. Yeah. It is not a person. You cannot distress a set of ideas. You can't harass a book or cause alarm to an ideology. So it's complete nonsense. There is no law to back this up. They're inventing it.
Well, I mean, that's what's so worrying about why they are doing so. And we did have that rather worrying question in the House of Parliament in PMQs a few months ago, where there was a call for a blasphemy law effectively brought back in. And Keir Starmer didn't slap it down saying, no, we don't have a blasphemy law in this country. He seemed to sort of accept the principle of it. Hamid Koskan, he's 50 years old. He's denied religiously motivated harassment after setting alight a copy of the Muslim to holy text outside the Turkish consulate in Knightsbridge in central London. Now, what was his motivation for burning the Quran? And presumably, again, he's not stolen someone else's Quran and damaged their goods. It's his own Quran. He's purchased it and he is burning it, not causing a risk to anyone else. I mean, in terms of there's no physical risk to other people. He wasn't throwing it at people or anything like that. What was his motivation, as far as we know?
I think he was making two different points. The first of those was in solidarity with a man called Salwan Momika, who had burnt a Quran, was being prosecuted for this in Sweden and was murdered. The second point he was making was a protest against the Islamisation of Turkey. Now, it seems we've got a pretty serious problem with the Islamisation of the CPS at the rate at which they are pushing these cases, and with the police, particularly, it seems, in parts of northern England. So those were the points he was making. They're both completely legitimate points to make in a democratic society. This absolutely should not be a police matter. And, of course, he was attacked afterwards for his trouble, for having taken part in this demonstration, having made his point.
Yeah, indeed. And there's a very big difference, isn't there, between someone saying they think it would probably not be a good idea to burn a religious text because it could cause offence to people. But that's different to being saying, I may choose not to do that out of sort of good manners, but I defend the right of anyone to choose to do that if they feel strongly about that. And he clearly feels strongly about that. He has a right to do it under our law. I mean, given that we've got enough laws that aren't actually upheld in this country when it comes to violence, when it comes to theft, sexual assault, goodness knows what. We've just been talking about grooming gangs all day and lack of charges brought. It's a bit bizarre to a lot of us that somebody who has caused no harm to anyone, burnt a book that is in his own possession, why on earth the CPS would feel the urge to bring charges like that? Do you think they genuinely do think that there should be a blasphemy law? Because if that is the case, we know it will only really apply to one religion, will it not? Because no one seems to have a problem with people being critical of Christianity or of any other religion at all. It only seems to crop up with one particular religion.
If somebody working at the CPS wants there to be a blasphemy law, they need to campaign for that. They need to stand for office on that platform, and they need to pass an act of parliament. It cannot be done through the back door. Almost 20 years ago, as you say, the blasphemy law was abolished in England and Wales. And if you look at what the CPS said in the Times, they said that we will never hesitate to prosecute cases where there is hostility towards members of a racial or religious group. Well, maybe they should hesitate. Maybe they should think about what they're doing. Maybe they really should think quite long and hard before unilaterally creating a blasphemy law in this country to protect Islam.
And indeed, this is the thing, if someone is threatening, abusive, or violently attacking somebody, whether it's due to their religious faith or any other reason, I want those people prosecuted. They're committing a crime. People have a right to look. I am appalled by anti-Semitism we see on the streets. I am appalled by people who are, and again, carrying out acts of anti-Muslim hatred in terms of threats to people because of their religious identity or their beliefs. I'm appalled by both sides. However, as you say, you can't threaten or harass an institution or an ideology or a building if you're not actually threatening to harm anyone in it or the building. That's not a thing. It's certainly not a crime. And yet these cases keep being brought. You say this is the third attempt. It sounds like they're not going to stop until they get a prosecution that's successful. The trouble with us, we in this country, we do have case law, don't we? If this is successful, it will set a precedent.
Well, the Free Speech Union will fight this battle as many times as we have to make sure that the message is heard by the police and by the CPS. And we did have some success recently with a case of an asylum seeker, ex-Muslim. He'd converted to Christianity. Ironically, he'd fled Iraq, fleeing religious persecution, only to be arrested by an English police force for burning a copy of the Koran. And we did manage to get all of the charges against him dropped. So we will keep fighting this fight.
Absolutely. Again, one of our key values in this country is that people are free to have a religion and to worship as they choose, but they're also free not to have a religion or to change religion, to marry someone of a different religion, to leave their religion. And again, blasphemy, leaving your religion, apostasy, that is actually illegal in a number of countries, but it's largely Islamist countries where that is the issue. And again, I don't want to speak like, oh, you're anti-Islam today. No, we have an issue. We need to face up to it. This is an issue and it's impacting all of our free speech. But the fact that the Prime Minister only a few months ago didn't just immediately rule out the possibility of bringing back the blasphemy law, I think, and as a former Director of Public Prosecutions in particular, I'm pretty worried about that. Are you, Ben?
Completely. And this proposal that there is going to be an Islamophobia definition put forward by the government, if it is anything like the definition that has been adopted by many other councils and public bodies, it will be a census charter. You will not be free to criticise Islam in this country.
Or even be critical of things like the burqa or the veil, which I am very, very critical of and have every right to be. It is extraordinary, isn't it? Ben Jones from the Free Speech Union, thank you very much. I'm a member of that union, so I also have to declare that. But I feel so strongly about these issues, but we have a blasphemy law by the back door already, do we not, Claire Pearsall, because of the violent threats. There are criticisms I would not make of Islam. I wouldn't show a picture of the cartoon of Prophet Muhammad as he's regarded in Islam. I don't believe there are any prophets. I'm an atheist. But only because I would like me and my husband and my daughter to stay alive. So it's the physical threats that I know are real. I know people who do that, who have to have panic buttons, who are facing threats every day to their life. So I'm afraid I want to keep my family alive. But that is a blasphemy law by the back door already. The fact that the CPS and the police are basically going along with that stuff, I think is terrifying.
It is, and it's appalling that was the third attempted prosecution of a law that doesn't exist. Yeah. Let's get that out.
Can we prosecute some rapists?
Yeah, let's do that instead.
Some child abusers.
It's really concerning that we can look, after 16 years, to come back to having a blasphemy law again. I mean, this is just utterly ridiculous.
But
we can't let it happen.
Who wants it?
Well, but the Prime Minister has had his opportunity to get rid of this once and for all. I
genuinely find it. We are sleepwalking. We are sleepwalking into a very, 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 very dangerous place.